Hello and welcome to another video by the Trader Guy, and this one's going to be on trends. And there's a lot that can be said about trends, and uh, there's entire books written about trend trading, and et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to clear up a few things for the newer trader because I think and trends and counter trend and going with the trend and what trend is and what time frame and everything else causes a lot of confusion and quite frankly a lot of anguish that for lack of a better term that isn't needed in the forex market when you're trading. So what's a trend? Let's go ahead and take a look at what a trend is real quick. A trend is the general direction of the market. So if it's going from the upper left hand side to the lower right hand side, it's a downtrend as an example. And this is going to be same in any market. It's still a downtrend in the futures market or the stock market or whatever. If it's going from the lower left to the upper right, it's an uptrend. Um, where people get into trouble, I mean, if charts actually looked like this, everybody would be a good trader. The problem is charts tend to look more like this. Go ahead and draw a downtrend here. And you can see that if this were, let's just say, the weekly chart, you can see where trouble comes into play because, um, for example, what happens when you're in this time frame or in this frame, this section of the market? Clearly, at that point in time, the trend is up, right? Well, it depends on who you talk to. The overall trend, no. And the main reason is there's two basic ways to tell a trend. There's other ones involving moving averages and stuff, but I'm going to keep this as simple as possible. A trend is defined by higher highs, lower lows, or whatever combination you have. So what I mean is this high that the market has made goes to this low and then it ebbs back up. This high was lower than that one. This low is lower than that one. So it's peaks and valleys, and you're gradually getting lower and lower over time. So knowing all of that, the trend is down. What gets people into trouble is they focus on this time period, and that is a killer to your account. Let me go ahead and show you where you see this the most. You'll see some type of report like this. You'll see, they'll talk about the trends, and it'll be an analyst most of the time, and they'll talk about trends in and let's just say USD CHF, and these aren't necessarily going to be true, but I'm just using it as an example. They'll say something like the 15-minute chart is most decidedly in an uptrend. And then the next thing they'll say is the 1 hour chart is most decidedly in an uptrend. And then the 4 hour chart, they'll say, well, that one's fairly neutral. And the daily chart, they'll say, is in a downtrend. So what they'll do is they'll start talking about all these different scenarios. Unfortunately for the newer trader, it just clouds the mind. This is the down trend, the daily, so you can see that the daily chart might look something along the lines like this. So what happens when you get these scenarios? Well, if you've got, for example, your 15-minute chart open and we're in this time period, then yes, it's in an uptrend. But the problem with this is you are going against the trend overall, and most people they think that these larger trends are simply too big. Well, I remember when I first started trading, the guy that pretty much taught me would say things like, Well, we don't trade the weekly charts. We don't have that kind of money. And the reality is you don't have to trade the weekly charts to trade in tandem with the weekly trend. The smart trader, the smart money goes with the trend. One of the greatest things about Forex trading is that the trends tend to run forever. So let's take a look at a real chart and let's talk about what we see and how we can use this kind of thing to our advantage. In front of you is the dollar yen weekly chart. Now, there are going to be times when um, the trend will alternate a little bit based upon what you're looking at that particular time. And what I mean is, like for example, um, you're going to have times where on this weekly chart, price had risen quite a bit, like right along here. And it's very easy to say, well, on the 15-minute chart, the trend is definitely up, and that's probably true. More than likely, when you zoom in, you'll see something like this on the 15-minute chart in that time period, and that is true. We've got higher lows and higher highs. That is, by definition, an uptrend. The, the problem with that is as you can see, it's against the overall trend. So unless you're willing to babysit that trade and hope for a little bit of luck, basically, um, you're really fighting a losing battle. One of the things that you hear a lot from the people who try to make Forex a big, manly sport, so to speak. They talk about going against the herd and not following the crowd and all that. But let me ask you this: what's the herd been telling you since about 2007 in the dollar yen? When you look at a chart like this, what do you think? First thought you have is, God, all I had to do was sell it. So the question is, why would you buy it? Until we make some kind of massive shift, why would you buy it? When you zoom in on this, you can see there were some times where you could have gotten whipsawed by using, um, this is basically where the trend fell. You can see that the low is definitely lower here, the high is definitely lower, and it keeps going. Now we eventually get overshot, and we do make a high here that could have taken you out if you were there. It could have whipsawed you, if you would have decided to short or whatever. It's not a perfect science. But as you can see, we continue to do the uh, lower low, lower highs. We get a couple little whippy parts there, but over the course of 4 years now, there's really only been one direction you should be trading. So when you look at the 15-minute charts, you need to look at the larger time frames. And again, the larger, the better. It doesn't have to be monthly. I mean, it can be weekly because, truthfully, I tend to use weekly personally because there's enough information there. If I want to switch to monthly, I can. And if you look at the monthly chart, there's even less reason to go long, quite frankly. I mean, this thing hit its last high at about 2004 or so. Um, you know, but weekly's enough, I think. So what I do is when I trade, I keep the trend in mind, and it's the overall trend. I don't care what the 15-minute trend is. I joined the Forex trading ranks for freedom. I want to make money. I want to be able to put my kids through school. I want to be able to pay somebody to cut the grass, whatever, those types of things. Go on vacation and such. For me, my goal is to make money, not to sit here and sweat bullets. So I like to place my trade, and I didn't necessarily place this trade, but you can see a break of the trend line you could have shorted and just walked away for a while. If you look at this chart on a shorter time frame, let's even go down to 15. You can see that, remember the trend is down. You can see that it's still down is still the way to go. I mean, we had some sideways action there for a while, and then it just collapsed. You could have made a little bit of money there, I suppose, but fading that, this counter trend move, you would have made more fading that than trying to break the trend. You certainly made more when it broke down with the trend. Again, you could have made a little here, but you've made more there. Do you see the theme? The theme is you are making more going with the trend. You are trading less. I have found over time, and it's going to be different for everybody personally, I imagine, but I have found over time that I am much more comfortable trading with the trend than against it. I can do things like sell, know I'm with the trend, and then take my kids to the zoo or something. It's one of my favorite things to do. I have young boys, so they love going to the zoo. I place a trade I know is with the trend, and I don't know that it'll work out, but I know more than likely the odds do favor me. Knowing this, it makes trading much simpler. So, my advice, for what it's worth, is to pay attention to the weekly charts. You can see dollar yen weekly, um, you know, and the other question that I will get quite often is well, what do I do in the case of a chart that I don't recognize the trend so much? Here's the simple answer that almost nobody, for some reason, nobody will tell you. Don't trade them. Doesn't need to be any more difficult than that. Why do you care if it's the euro dollar, dollar yen, Swiss yen, you know, Turkish lira? It really doesn't have to be anything in particular. Take a look at this chart. This is Euro Aussie, and you can see that we are consolidating recently. And now that we're consolidating, which direction do you want to be trading in? You still want to be short until this is broken. There's only been really one way to trade this, and this truly has been a one-way trade. Look for charts like this. When the overall trend is decidedly obvious, they're the ones that will pay you the most because you can short, in this case, you can short the pair comfortably with confidence and move on about your life. Let your money work for you while you're doing other things. That is true leverage when you're leveraging your time. And that really should be your goal. This shouldn't be stressful. You shouldn't be fighting. You shouldn't be trying to pick the tops and bottoms. You should simply go with the flow of the market. The Forex market is wonderful about the way that it likes to trend. It'll trend for 2 to 3, 4 years at a time in a currency pair before it does one of these massive corrections. But overall, if you look at most charts over the greater length of time, they tend to run one way for long periods of time. So with that in mind, if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to stop at the website. It's thetraderguy.com, and that'll be in the description as well. And if you want to try to reach me, you can either contact me at the site or email at chris@thetraderguy.com. Okay, gang, thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I appreciate your comments and your messages and hope to see you on the site.